22 years. Think about what has happened in the world in 22 years. New generations have been born. Wars have started and ended. Entire technologies, smartphones, social media, streaming services have been invented, exploded into culture, and become things that children cannot imagine living without. And in all of that time, Arsenal Football Club, one of the most storied clubs in the history of English football, have not won the Premier League. Not once. The last time Arsenal lifted that trophy, Thierry Henry was terrorizing defenders across England. Patrick Vieira commanded midfields with an authority that bordered on contempt. And Arsene Wenger's side did something no team had done in the modern era. They went an entire 38-game season without losing a single match. 90 points, 26 wins, 12 draws, 0 defeats. The Invincibles. That was 2003-2004. Since then, nothing. Not under Arsene Wenger in his final years, not under Unai Emery, not under Mikel Arteta, despite 3 consecutive runners-up finishes that have left the Gunners' fan base oscillating between genuine hope and the quiet, creeping dread that this club is cursed. But right now, in the 2025-26 season, something feels different.
Arsenal sit top of the Premier League with 58 points from 27 games, 5 clear of Manchester City.
More remarkably, they have just made Champions League history, becoming the first team ever to win all 8 games in the new league phase. 8 games, 24 points, maximum possible, never been done before. So the question every Arsenal fan is asking, the question that has haunted this club for over 2 decades, is this: is this finally the year? And more importantly, what is standing between Arsenal and greatness?
To understand what this moment means, you first have to understand how much it has hurt getting here. The 2022-23 season was supposed to be Arsenal's coronation. They led the Premier League for 248 days, nearly the entire campaign. Bukayo Saka was electric. Gabriel Martinelli was outrunning the entire league. Martin Odegaard was pulling strings from midfield with a grace that reminded older fans of the great Bergkamp. And for a while, it felt not just possible, but inevitable. Then Manchester City turned the heat up. City went on a run so relentless and so clinical that Arsenal, who were brilliant, simply couldn't match it. They finished 5 points behind Pep Guardiola's side. 5 points after 248 days of leading. The fans were devastated, but the hope remained. A young squad, time on their side. Next year. 2023-24 was even more brutal. Arsenal didn't just compete, they produced their best ever numbers in the Premier League era. They scored more goals than any Arsenal team in history. They conceded the fewest. They collected 89 points, the second highest total in the club's existence. 89 points in any other era of football would have won the title, but Manchester City got 91, 2 points, on the final day of the season. The title went to the Etihad again. Mikel Arteta stood in the Goodison Park dressing room after Arsenal's final game, a 2-1 win over Everton that meant nothing, and processed the mathematics of heartbreak. More wins than any Arsenal team, more goals than any Arsenal team, and still not enough. 2024-25 was meant to be the one. Manchester City were in crisis. Erling Haaland was inconsistent. Rodri, their metronome, had ruptured his ACL in September. The door wasn't just open, it was off its hinges. But Liverpool, under Arne Slot in his first full season, were magnificent. They romped to the title by 10 points. Arsenal finished second again, their 3rd consecutive runner-up finish. In the entire history of English top-flight football, no team had ever finished second 3 times in a row. Arsenal had now done it twice, once under the Wenger era between 1999 and 2001, and now again under Arteta. 3 times, second, second, second. The weight of that is almost incomprehensible. Before we can judge whether this year is different, we need to understand the man who has brought Arsenal to this point.
Because Mikel Arteta is one of the most fascinating and complicated figures in modern football. He arrived at Arsenal in December 2019, a first-time manager, stepping out of the shadow of Pep Guardiola at Manchester City, where he had served as assistant for 4 years. He inherited a club that had finished 5th and 8th in consecutive seasons, a dressing room that had curdled with entitlement and complacency, a squad stuffed with players who were technically capable but lacked the hunger and intensity that winning requires. His first season, interrupted by COVID, condensed and chaotic, ended with an FA Cup. Arsenal beat Chelsea at Wembley in the final. It was the first sign that Arteta was not just competent, but genuinely capable of building something. But his real work happened in silence. Arteta didn't just want to change tactics, he wanted to change culture. He set standards of training intensity that players found uncomfortable. He was uncompromising about how the game should be pressed, how the ball should be moved, how defenders should step out from the back. Some players, older, established, resistant, didn't survive. Mesut Ozil, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Alexandre Lacazette, the names that had defined the post-Wenger era disappeared, one by one. In their place came a new generation. Bukayo Saka, who had emerged from the Hale End Academy as a teenager and immediately looked like he belonged at the very highest level. Technically gifted, relentlessly hard-working, mature beyond his years, a player who in another era, at another club, would be the single most valuable asset in the building. Gabriel Martinelli, raw Brazilian pace and power, a player who improved year after year under Arteta's coaching, who made defenders look slow and desperate in equal measure. Martin Odegaard, on loan from Real Madrid, then signed permanently, the Norwegian captain who gave Arsenal the creative intelligence and technical quality their midfield had been lacking for a decade. William Saliba, a center-back who returned from loan spells in France, looking like the most composed, assured defender in the Premier League. Alongside Gabriel Magalhaes, they formed arguably the best center-back partnership in England. And then came the acquisitions that signaled genuine ambition. Declan Rice for a club record fee, the best defensive midfielder in England, the engine that made Arsenal's press sustainable. Martin Zubimendi in the summer of 2025, the Spanish metronome that Arteta had been chasing for years, a player so calm in possession that he makes chaos feel manageable. Victor Gyökeres, the Swede who had torn apart the Portuguese league for Sporting, who gave Arsenal a center-forward capable of the clinical goals that had been missing from the team for years. It was a rebuild executed with patience and intelligence. Every signing had a purpose, every departure had a reason. Arteta understood, perhaps better than any other manager in England, that squad depth is not a luxury, it is the difference between winning titles and watching others win them. And in the 2025-26 season, it has finally clicked into place.
The football Arsenal are playing this season is not just effective, it is genuinely beautiful. Arteta has built a team that presses with relentless intensity, but passes with patient precision. They can pin teams in their own half for 30 minutes, and then, with a single exchange of passes through the lines, find themselves one-on-one with the goalkeeper. They can defend a lead for 90 minutes with a defensive organization that is almost suffocating to play against. At the heart of this system is Declan Rice. Rice is the player who makes everything possible. He wins the ball in areas of the pitch that most midfielders don't even reach. He covers the space behind the defense when Arsenal press high. He drives forward with the ball when there is space to exploit. He is, in every sense of the word, the engine. Arsenal with Rice are a different proposition to Arsenal without him, which is why his injury record has been one of the few things keeping Arteta awake this season. Alongside him, Zubimendi has transformed the rhythm of Arsenal's build-up play. Where previously they could be rushed, forced into mistakes under pressure, Zubimendi brings a calmness, a metronome-like quality that keeps the ball moving with purpose rather than panic. It is no coincidence that Arsenal's attacking play has been more fluid and more consistent since his arrival. Further forward, Bukayo Saka continues to operate at an elite level. He has been involved in more Premier League goals this season than any other Arsenal player,
And his movement off the ball, his ability to drag defenders out of position and create space for others, is as valuable as his direct contributions. And then there are the set pieces. This is one of the most overlooked aspects of Arsenal's dominance, but the numbers are extraordinary. They have scored over 20 set-piece goals in each of the last 2 seasons, only the second team in Premier League history to achieve that in consecutive campaigns, after Wimbledon in the early 1990s. At the Emirates, their corner routines are so carefully choreographed, so well practiced, that opponents know exactly what is coming and still cannot stop it. This is the Arteta touch, the obsessive attention to marginal gains, the refusal to leave anything to chance, the understanding that modern football is won not just in moments of individual brilliance, but in the hundreds of small decisions made every single week on the training pitch. In the Champions League, this approach has produced the most remarkable statistic of all. Arsenal have gone through the entire league phase, 9 consecutive home matches across 2 seasons without conceding a single goal. 27 scored, 0 conceded, at the Emirates in UEFA's premier club competition. It is a record without precedent in the tournament's history. This is not a team that got lucky. This is a team that was built. But here is the question that sits underneath all of this, the uncomfortable truth that every Arsenal fan carries. If the team is so well built, so brilliantly coached, so clearly talented, why haven't they won it yet? The honest answer is that Arsenal have been here before. Not quite in this position, not with this quality, but close enough for the echoes to be uncomfortable. There is a specific Arsenal pattern that has tormented the club's supporters over the last 2 decades. 5 times in the last 23 years, Arsenal have ended the calendar year at the top of the Premier League. 5 times, and 5 times they have failed to win the title. When Arteta was confronted with this statistic in early January 2026, Arsenal holding a 4-point lead over Manchester City, his response was characteristically defiant. He said simply, "Let's break it." But breaking patterns is harder than it sounds when you carry the weight of history. There is also the question of composure in the biggest moments.
Arsenal have reached the Champions League semifinals once under Arteta in 2024-25. The previous season, 2023-24, they were eliminated in the quarterfinals, last 8, by Bayern Munich. In the 2025-26 season, they have progressed to the round of 16, but have not yet reached the semifinals. Progress has been real, but progress is not the same as winning.
And the Premier League, which on paper appears most within reach, has shown that Arteta's team has a tendency to drop points in ways that cost them at the end of campaigns. In 2022-23, the collapse over the final 10 games. In 2023-24, 3 defeats in January that proved critical. In 2025-26, an inability to match Liverpool's relentlessness over a full season. Arteta himself acknowledged this after the 2023-24 season, saying, "We scored the most goals in the history of Arsenal Football Club, and the least goals conceded, the most clean sheets and the most wins. You still don't win the league. That's the demands that we have. Almost everything has to be perfect in this league to give yourself the chance to win it. Almost everything has to be perfect. In a season where Arsenal have started perfectly, that line feels both a warning and a promise." Arsenal are not running away with this. Manchester City, on 53 points, are 5 points behind and breathing on their necks. Aston Villa, under Unai Emery, are third on 50 points, a genuine contender that few predicted would still be in the hunt at this stage. The league is tight, the margins are small. Manchester City present the most familiar obstacle. Even in a season where they have already lost 5 times, they remain the team Arsenal has been chasing for 3 years.
Pep Guardiola, still the most tactically intelligent manager in world football, will not simply surrender the title. City's squad, even without Roddy for extended periods, has the quality to put together the kind of sustained run that changes title races. There is also the psychological weight of the head-to-head. Arsenal's recent record against City is complicated, not because they have been dominated, but because the truly crucial games have so often gone against them at the worst moments. That equation might need to change if Arsenal are to cross the line. Then there is Aston Villa. Emery's side have been the unexpected presence at the top of the table, and their inclusion in the race adds an unpredictability that both Arsenal and City must manage. Aston Villa have already beaten Arsenal once this season, a result that ended an 18-match unbeaten run, and they will not be intimidated. On the European front, Arsenal emerge from the Champions League phase as the competition's top seeds, no playoff round, direct passage to the last 16, and potentially favorable draw advantages as they progress. Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Barcelona, all are still in the competition and all represent dangers. But Arsenal have already beaten Bayern in the group phase this season. They have shown they can compete with the best in Europe. The double, Premier League and Champions League, in the same season has only been achieved by 3 English clubs: Manchester United in 1999, Arsenal themselves in 1998 and 2002, Chelsea in 2010 under Carlo Ancelotti. Can a fourth name be added to that list?
Let's be honest about what this Arsenal team is. They are the best coached team in England. They have the deepest squad they have had since the Invincibles. They have set new records in the Champions League. They are top of the Premier League. They have the most dominant home record in European competition in the tournament's history. They have a manager who, despite 3 painful near misses, has not cracked, has not panicked, has not deviated from his vision. And they have something else. They have the belief that this season is different. Not a naive belief born from ignorance of what has come before, but a hardened belief, forged in the fire of 3 consecutive runner-up finishes. The quiet, unspoken understanding between Arteta and his players that they have done everything asked of them, absorbed every setback, improved every year, and that they are now standing at the threshold of something historic. Arteta himself said it best when asked about Arsenal's depth this season. He said, "We've gone to another level this season. Last season, at times, we had 13 or 14 outfield players competing for places. It's not enough. We've gone and increased the numbers and certainly the quality, and within that, the versatility of this team." That versatility is the key difference. In previous title races, when injuries hit, and injuries always hit in a 50-game season, Arsenal's squad thinned dangerously. This season, Arteta can lose players and not lose performance. That is the margin that has been missing. That may be the margin that wins a title. But here is the truth that no amount of statistics can fully capture. Winning a title requires not just quality, not just depth, not just coaching brilliance. It requires the moments when a game is poised at 0-0 in the 89th minute and you need someone to produce something extraordinary. The moments when a title race is balanced on a knife's edge and your team finds a way instead of finding an excuse. The Invincibles had Thierry Henry for those moments. The Liverpool side that won the title in 2020 had Mo Salah and Sadio Mane. The City teams that dominated for 4 consecutive years had Erling Haaland, Kevin De Bruyne, Rodri. Arsenal, right now, have Bukayo Saka and Victor Gyökeres and Martin Odegaard. They have a system so well drilled that individual moments matter less than collective execution. 22 years, 3 runner-up finishes in a row, a Champions League record that has never been matched, a manager who has rebuilt one of England's greatest clubs from its foundations, a squad with more quality and depth than any Arsenal team of the last 2 decades. This is Mikel Arteta's Arsenal in February 2026.
They are 4 points clear. They are the only team in Champions League history to win every game in the league phase. They are playing the best football of the Arteta era, and somewhere, in a stadium that has been waiting longer than it should have had to, 50,000 voices have started to believe, really believe, that the wait might finally be over. The question is whether Arteta's Gunners have the nerve to see it through. History says be careful. The numbers say this team is different, and somewhere in between those two truths, the 2025-26 Premier League title will be won or lost. Arsenal, 22 years, the double dream.